Hello and welcome to another edition of the NRS Insights podcast. I'm John Lovestock, and today I'm joined by Susie Silliman, who is the Senior Vice President of Data Strategy and Sales for NRS, and Brandon Thurber, who is the Vice President of Data Sales and Client Success at NRS. Happy New Year, guys. First time we're speaking.
I know. Happy New Year, John.
Hi, John. Happy New Year.
Looking
Happy New
forward to
Year.
good things in 2024.
Well, we're going to get into some alcohol sales, I think, so that'll kind of dictate how my 24 goes. But anyway, today we're going to be discussing the NRS Insights December 2023 Retail Same Store Sales Report. And for those of you who don't know, NRS has an expansive reach into retail. The NRS network comprises more than 27,000 active POS terminals in approximately 23,000 independent retail stores. Its platform predominantly serves small format, independent retail stores, including convenience stores, bodegas, liquor stores, grocery stores, and many others. So with that, guys, I had a chance to look over the December 2023 report, and as I saw on a Stock Titan news source, it said all positives, so lots of positive, no negatives. So why don't, Brandon, why don't you just jump right in and tell me how the stores performed in December?
Sure. As you mentioned, lots of positives. Traffic continues to be the small format independent best friend. Anytime your traffic's up compared to last year or compared to the previous month, it helps to drive sales. So the number of transactions adjusted for the number of days in the month compared to the pre-period was up about 1% and then 5% compared to last year. So the more people in your store, they tend to buy more things, and that led to a sales increase of also about 5%. Which, when we compare these numbers and compile them, we yet again are outpacing traditional retail commerce for the whole year of 2023. Month by month, we outpaced traditional retail commerce around 4.5%.
Right.
So go
Mhm.
ahead, Susan.
Sorry. So, John, when we've been having these podcasts for a couple of months now, we've been doing the press release, I think, for almost a year,
A year
maybe
and a
more than
half.
a year and a half. That's hard to believe. But in 2023, every single month, the NRS network has outperformed a year ago on the three dimensions, three metrics, and outperformed overall retail. So that's a pretty impactful statement. But when you sort of drill into it, peel back the onion, it speaks volumes for the importance of the mom and pop operator in the urban markets, in the neighborhoods, and the loyalty of the shoppers of those stores.
Mhm. Now, as Brandon was talking, I don't think I mentioned this before. I read a report, might have been recently, about millennials and Gen Z and their living arrangements, and they are opting not to purchase homes. They're looking for luxury apartments in urban markets. That bodes really well for your
Mhm.
retailers and for your market.
Absolutely. And I don't blame them at all. I was sort of raised in the mentality that when you hit adulthood, that you had to own your own house.
Mhm.
And I think that was the sort of biggest fallacy that was impressed upon me in
Mhm.
my youth.
And
Tying it to our retailers, I do think that the more we understand about these, the better off everyone is. It's the shift in people moving to luxury open or luxury apartments, luxury urban apartments, but it's also grocery gap fill. It's I don't want to spend an hour and a half in a mass merch store anymore. I'd much rather go to my local retailer and buy five or six things and fill up as needed. So all of these things, as we keep talking about, really bode well for that urban independent store.
Sure. So, in talking about December and those numbers and how strong they were, um, the holiday must have played a role in that, right? I mean, that's an obvious end of year holiday season, but it probably did. But it's also indicative, like you said, Brandon, of a just a bigger trend to shop at these stores for your needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So December is always a strong month for beer, wine, and liquor sales, and this was no exception. Our top growth category was beer, followed up by the F&B cider category, but tequila, prepared cocktails, whiskey were also categories that saw significant growth compared to last year in same-store sales percentage.
Right. And John, when Brandon refers top growth category, that is in terms of net sales growth, right? Not on a percentage basis, because we're talking about a huge category. It is showing double-digit growth, so the impact to the total dollar growth is significant. When when you look at those categories from a percentage basis, that's where some of these emerging categories, like your prepared cocktails, both ready to drink and pre-made, are really showing some very impressive numbers in in the 40% consistently. And I don't know about yourself, but I had the opportunity to socialize a lot over December at some home parties and holiday events, and it was for the first time the prepared cocktail options had completely replaced spirits and mixers at every single house party or house event that I went to. They had a range of beer, seltzer and other malt-based drinks, but also a variety of those true prepared cocktails. Now, on the wine side, still bottles of wine. So at all of the events that I went to, still actually had the bottles of wine, but there was no bar with mixers and spirits set up. It was all ready to drink prepared cocktails. Brandon and John, did either of you have a similar experience?
Yeah, I've seen a growing popularity in both ready to drink and what is now being classified as ready to serve, which is basically a spirits mixed drink in a bottle that has 3 or 4 servings in it. And those seem to be pretty popular also. One important thing to note from the data side of things is this isn't coming at this isn't compromising beer sales or isn't compromising F&B cider sales. So net, it seems to be pretty positive for the bev alc category. Go, John.
So yeah, that lack of cannibalization is super important to see. And in our stores, we're not seeing that cannibalization. So what does that mean? It means that either it is creating new occasions to buy and consume, or it is bringing new shoppers, new consumers into a category. And that's always the goal of innovation.
I kind of feel like you guys are making fun of me because I don't have any friends and didn't get invited anywhere. But I think I mentioned this to you guys once before, and particularly White Claw, but the seltzer trend is something, I've been doing this 30 years and I see trends that I think are going to catch on, and then I see things that I say that's going to come and go. I was just wrong. I was flat out wrong on seltzer. It was the predominant drink at a couple of the parties I went to. All demographics, men, women, younger, older. It was a popular drink, and it continues to be a popular drink. So, in talking to retailers, they can't keep enough of it on their shelves. I know we've gotten through some of the supply chain, but during COVID, they were rationing flavors just because the demand was so big. And I don't know if you have any specific numbers on that, Brandon, but it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
So it's still making up a decent chunk of the F&B cider seltzer category. Is now it's called seltzer gets its own presence in that category. It 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 provides a flavor, and a lot of our consumers flock to flavors. We see this across all categories, and not so much flavors, but something as simple as laundry detergent. In urban, the higher scented products do better. So I think there will always be a need and a consumer demand for anything flavorful for the right demographic. In terms of sales versus a year ago, we did see a little bit of a decline, but it's still an important component of that category.
I'm of a certain age where I remember like Zimas. That's what I think of when I see these alternative beverages.
I liked Zimas.
But do you remember how I mean, it was the butt of jokes, and it came and it was big, and then it just went away. And I just don't see that in retail.
No, and
Yeah.
I think you both saw recently the announcement of the non-alcoholic version of White Claw. So being in the midst of dry January, it will be interesting to see, particularly in our stores when we meet next month, how those non-alcoholic varieties did. Is there still like a lot of sort of popularity around dry January as an event. That sober curious is becoming far more common in the just
Ooh.
sort of social communities.
Did you say
And
sober curious?
yeah, that's a
Like
term.
people who are curious to see what it's like to be sober?
Yeah, and are sort of deliberately cutting down on their alcohol consumption by replacing with some of these non-alcoholic options. Like true, if you go back to your true spirits, there are so many spirit varieties out that are NA that if you wanted to have a smoked Manhattan and have that full experience, you
Right.
can. And incredible popularity as far as that goes with the demographic that's buying the urban lofts for $1 million.
Yeah, it has to be because trying to explain this to my generation would probably get me beaten up. So I'm not gonna. But that's fast. I mean, that's fast. That just it's another market. It's another opportunity to sell
It
more
is.
stuff, and be somewhat healthy, which I guess people want to do these days. So what other categories? Now, when you have people buying alcohol and for the holidays and making trips to get these drinks, I mean, are they grabbing a bag of chips? Are they looking for the Entenmann's chocolate marshmallow cake, which is like the greatest thing ever made, and other grab and go snacks while they're there?
Certainly, it would with our sales being up, they continue to see growth in other categories, salty snacks, soft drinks, etc. The category that we're I think watching most for the future is the candy, gum, and mints category. We continue to see it remain flat in terms of dollars, but the units are dropping off a bit. And I think we've reached a point maybe where the consumer is very intrigued with the pricing and willing to explore other options.
Yeah, pack of gum is gotten expensive. You remember when you used to be able to get a 25-cent pack with
Mhm.
5 sticks of Double Mint? You just
Certainly.
can't see that anymore. And it's raw goods. The prices are going up
Yeah,
across the board. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Brandon. What else? Any other categories that retailers should know about that they may want to start jumping on the bandwagon?
not I mean anything in around January, paying careful attention to seasonality. So I, a lot of stores may be stocking up on better for you products or supplements, those sorts of health conscious decisions. Once we get into February, it does become, chocolate becomes seasonal with Valentine's and Easter. So anytime you can be ahead of the curve in seasonality, I think it bodes well for your business.
Get ready to start seeing the Cadbury eggs. Can't wait.
Yep.
I think they might already haven't been shipped.
They have or they haven't?
I think I saw some posts either on X or on LinkedIn of retailers that have received them already.
Very nice. I love it.
And yep, and the Reese's eggs.
So as we get around this time of year, we're starting to get into some big events. We just had the national championship, the NFL playoffs, basketball. Corporate, like what is the corporate sponsor support of retail? Are you finding that suppliers are getting a little bit more involved in or I'm sorry, suppliers are getting more involved in helping retailers around these big events to help push these products and um, be a little more proactive in helping sell more stuff?
So it's interesting. When you think about some of these big sponsorships, of course, always having retail tie-in is beneficial, but there is a lot of potential buzz that is associated with some of the naming rights or sponsorship. Like this year, one that really stood out to me because it was the first year and it was so novel and it owned the internet for 5 days was the Pop-Tart poll. So I don't know, John, if you
Mhm.
paid attention to the Pop-Tart bowl, but having that mascot, which was a very lovable character, um, and the sort of the shtick around it, which it goes into the toaster and then it becomes a edible mascot for the winner of the game. That got so much, like from a going viral perspective, went incredibly viral. And when I say it on the internet for 5 days, it definitely on the internet for 5 days. And everybody was talking about it very positively. Now, kudos to Kellanova for sort of taking that risk, because it it could have gone either way. I was not 100% sure what way that was going to go. I did end up watching it live, and just hearing the commentators and everything was, and the analysts, was so interesting. But then just seeing in real time on my phone how, how the audience was reacting to that was incredible. So you often wonder, how does, those things are expensive. How does that really pay back? And when you think about our stores, the urban independent, did we see any type of a lift, any kind of an impact? So Pop-Tarts as a brand has been doing really well in our stores, seeing growth versus year ago, et cetera. But if you just looked at those 5 days around that, after just 5 days after the bowl game, they're just those 5 days, not beyond. We haven't done that analysis yet, but there was an incremental lift of 4% that was above what I'll call the secular trend that we had seen prior to those 5 days. So November and December, up until those 5 days, it was trending up around 8 percentage points, and then increased by an additional 4% during those 5 days.
Very cool. Did they, because I didn't see some of the hype surrounding the promotion, did they also promote the name change to Kellanova? Because I think most people may not know, they know Kellogg. And was that part of it or no? Just out of curiosity, more than anything.
Not as much. It really was focused on
Pop-Tart.
on Pop-Tarts, yeah.
That was
But
my editor hat putting, by the way. That was an editor question.
yeah, but one of Brandon's favorite topics, and I'll turn this over to him, is, of course, we are in a unique position with these independents that we have advertising screens in store. So as an extension to any of these types of sponsorships and like larger campaigns that the big football game that is coming up on the NFL football game, we're not allowed to, I don't think we're allowed to use the actual word without approval. But those types of advertisers, any sponsors of bowl games with those name recognition, it makes complete sense in terms of riding the wave of the awareness that you have generated to also extend that campaign and serve it on the screens in our stores. And Brandon, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. What's great about our flexibility and ability to customize is we can serve them in the location in which the game is taking place. And then, for instance, so the big professional football game that's happening, we can serve it in the locations where the teams are coming from, because that's a neutral site game. Likewise with bowl games, those are neutral site games. So we can amplify that brand in the area in which it's most near and dear to the fan base, and then also near the event. So I've said for a long time that needs to be, that makes perfect sense, right? If you're sponsoring halftime shows and you're sponsoring the first commercial break, that is pretty costly. It would make sense to kind of piggyback that in store where the product is sold in these locations.
Right. You want to be top of mind, right? So like to Brandon's point, it's a tremendous investment for that brand awareness. What a better extension than to be served on a screen in the store immediately following that broader campaign so that you're ensuring that you're top of mind, that you're influencing the path to purchase in real life, in a location where they can actually pull the product off the shelf.
And on top of that, we're seeing there almost wants to be a buzz created ahead of time to lead up to that big ad spot, and you could certainly turn that on pretty flexibly in our stores to help that build up.
And I mean, there's probably no limit, right? With stores that if they have an app, or if they're doing something with the Room or Uber Eats or whomever, you could promote it right on the app and increase traffic and eyes on that ad to help your retailers as well. But anyway, we are coming up against the clock here, so let's talk a little bit about the report again. So, Brandon, where can we see this full report, and where can we get this on a monthly basis?
Sure, Yahoo Finance picks it up on a regular basis. Other folks are starting to pick it up more often, but you can set your Google alerts for the National Retail Solutions same store sales press release, and that'll make you aware. And it's usually published within 5 business days at the beginning of the month.
Excellent.
And John, it also can be found under press releases on IDT.net.
IDT.net, your parent company. So good. This was great stuff, guys. Really good stuff. I look forward to chatting with you again next month to learn more about this dry January, which is kind of a foreign concept to me, but I'm open to new things. Any closing words before we wrap up?
None
No?
from me. Thanks a lot.
All right. So on behalf of
Go Steelers, are those closing words?
You snuck that in there. On behalf of Susie and Brandon, I want to thank you for tuning in to this edition of the NRS Insights podcast. We'll hopefully talk to you again next week. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
All right. Thanks, John.
I don't.